Welcome to Head Over the Footy. How you going, Jye?
Good, Hats. How are you, mate? Does run a best little stretch of footy, which was good for my confidence, knowing that I can do that at AFL level. I don't think I was holding the ball, mate. My 18th year was probably one of my most disappointing, I reckon, which at the time was pretty scary.
You are one of the most courageous players in the AFL. You go harder than anyone, and you're probably one of the best boxers in the AFL.
Oh, here we go. We had Leon Cameron as a coach. He used to spark us up a fair bit against the Doggies.
Did you have that go-home factor?
Honestly, that wasn't too much of a reason why. I feel like that.
Do you guys talk about finals much?
We've got a good age bracket coming through now. We're all pretty young and eager to have some final success.
Jye Caldwell, 23 years old, pick number 11 in the 2018 National Draft, and you went to GWS, and then you went to the Essendon Bombers. And mate, firstly, welcome to Head Over the Footy. How you going, Jye?
Good, Hats. How are you, mate? Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have, mate. Thanks for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you on. We go way back. We went to school together, played cricket together.
A lot of cricket.
Yeah. You were a gun at both. I was
really. I was
worse.
I was a left arm chucker, mate. Bit short.
And you could bat. Don't leave that out.
A little bit.
Yeah. Well, mate, you're flying at the moment. How's things? You're in the bye now, which is nice. A bit relaxing for you at this stage of the season.
Yeah. No, it's been good. We obviously started the season pretty well, sitting, I think, 8-3 and 1 draw in there. So things have been pretty good at the moment. But as you said, we're on the bye. It's a good chance to get away and refresh for a little bit because it's such a long season. But went up to Gold Coast for 4 or 5 days. Real refreshing and keen to get back next week. Yeah,
certainly. And mate, I've got to pump you up. I've got to make sure the audience knows about you. You are one of the most courageous players in the AFL. There's no doubt about that. You go harder than anyone, and you're probably one of the best boxers in the AFL.
Oh, here we go. I was just up last week on SEM with that. Did you hear about that?
No, what happened?
Like Gaz and Tim Watson got into me about it. But every time I do some media thing, it's always the boxing that comes up. So I'm glad it correlates into like football, but it's a good one, Hats.
Do you ever box at the club? Because they banned it, or you couldn't like punch people in the head or something like that. But you can do like shadowing and that sort of boxing, can't you?
Yep. So like my first couple of years at the Giants, we did a lot of boxing, on a Saturday morning, sparring, more fitness type boxing. Yeah. But then over the last couple of years, I think it was the Shane Tuck incident. The coroner said to sort of limit sparring to eliminate concussions. So I think you can still box. It's not in our program much now as a fitness-based thing, like with the pads and whatnot, but there's no like proper sparring or hitting each other anymore.
So when you got to the Giants, and we'll get into your early stages of your career, even we'll go back to your Bendigo days as well, where you grew up. But when you were at the Giants and boxing, and in your early first 2 seasons you were there, you must have torn that session apart. You would have been impressing everyone.
Yeah, it was my bread and butter because it's like obviously I did it at a young age, and then getting to the Giants, it was pretty. I could still have a bit of background behind me. So on the Saturday mornings in pre-season, we used to do a fair bit of boxing, and there's a few good boxers out there. We had Zachy Williams, Mumford, yeah. Mumford was a good boxer. Who else? Sam Reid, good throw him. So we had a fair few good boxers, but it was good to show off a little bit, and you could pick on the other blokes that weren't so flash. But it's good to have that feather in your pocket. Yeah,
certainly. And your team's killing it at the moment. You're playing a big part in that. So we'll talk about Essendon and everything that's happening there, because I've heard from Brad Scott, I've heard from a lot of people that it's good times at the moment, and it says it all on the ladder, but we'll get into that a bit later. Starting off now with, growing up in Bendigo, you played footy, you're boxing back then as well, you got to a high level. But tell us about your footy early days in Bendigo. You grew up in Bendigo, is that right?
Grew up in Bendigo on a little hobby farm just outside. Basically played football my whole life. Played a lot of various sports, boxing, cricket, basketball. But mainly football was the winter sport that I would be consumed in, and then obviously transfers to cricket in the summertime. But played my local footy at Golden Square Football Club for up to I was under 18s. But the good thing was that when I was 14, I played in a practice match for the 18s, and they wanted me to play 18s like a few years younger, which at the time was pretty scary, but it was very good for my development in playing with older people. So I did that, and then what else happened? Then it was Vic Country stuff in under 15s, 16s, 18s. All Victorian stuff under 12s, and then all Australian 2015, 16 as well. So been around the park a little bit, but it's a good little development block since I've been young. And then obviously met you down at Geelong Grammar, got a scholarship there, which I was lucky enough to get, and
and that's talented junior coming through. You're well and truly into it from the get go. There, there's some players that come in when they're 18. That's when they start. Like, well, I was going to say Mason Cox, but he started a lot later.
Way later.
Tell us about that draft now. Getting drafted to GWS at pick 11. You're touted as one of the best midfielders in the draft, and you've certainly turned out to be one of the best, if not the best. We don't know. You and Sam Walsh are going head to head. It's and there's a number of other midfielders in that good draft. It was a good draft year, wasn't it? 2018.
Very good. It was we're up against a lot of good people. We had the Kings boys, Bailey Smith, Sam Walsh, Connor Rosie, Butters, Nick Blakey.
Wow.
Just to name a few, and they've taken off like a rocket. So it was a good draft. But before the draft, my 18th year was probably one of my most disappointing, I reckon. Obviously, being at school footy, didn't play much. I had a couple of hamstring injuries early on, concussions, so I didn't really play much footy in my 18th year. I did banked a bit of work in my 17th year, playing underage Vic Country, and all that. But I missed the national championships in 18th year with a hamstring strain, and sort of couldn't get my body right in that year. And then leading into the draft, that was pretty frustrating. Obviously, you're pretty eager to be the best pick you want to be. And then obviously still being a first round draft pick was massive for myself going up to the Giants. But it was a pretty tough year. Yeah,
let's get into those injuries, because it happened to you in your first year at the Bombers.
Yep.
Later on from those years you were just talking about, and then even at the Giants as well. But then that draft year as well, I think you did both hamstrings.
Yep.
How tough was all that? But then you also speak about learning and being able to have that experience and how it's helped you to become who you are now, and knowing how important it is with your body. Is that right? Is that how it's been?
It's two ways to look at it. There's obviously you don't want it to happen, but then I'm sort of thankful that it has happened to me. Early on in my career, it was poor me. Why is this happening early on? Pre-draft, my first few years, first year at Essendon, I did a hamstring strain, did it again, surgery, got back for the finals, and then so end of my third year, I've played 11 AFL games towards my name, and you look at everyone else. Outside of that, who you compare to, so people in that drafts like Walsh, Rosie, they've already played probably 60 games compared to my 11. So I haven't really developed much as a player, and my self-belief was pretty low. I've done a mountain of work in that space to be able to get to where I am today, which I was saying before, it's bad that it's happened in that regard, but then the learnings that I've had from that have been huge, because I do a lot of stuff away from the club with a psych, and people don't realise how much pressure there is on athletes in sport, and then also internally as well. I had a lot of good people around me at the time when I was younger, my parents, family, Naya, a lot of special people. But then when you're a young player, you sort of look internally. If people always trying to help you, but then you're just still looking at I'm stuffing this up. You sort of shrivel up and you can't expand that. Even with my psych, we just do a lot of stuff to clear the head and just keep moving forward. So that's been massive.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because a lot of people on the outside just watch footy. They don't know about what it's like to be talking to a psych as an athlete, and that's a whole different world for them. Can you give us an insight into what's some maybe yourself or some other players what it's like with the psych and how it's actually can help AFL athletes and other sport people?
Yeah, so we have a club psych who I see him more as a mental skills coach with like meditation, visualization before games. Flushing games like week to week. Like 1 week you play on a Saturday, you might have 30 and be an absolute superstar, and the next week you stink it up and then you're the worst player on the team. Like it's such a fluctuation in between games. So to be able to realise these things and to be able to move on and just work on what you're good at and have good boundaries, it's huge. And then I also have the other psych who I see pure, not footy based, probably more like away from footy, just to sort of marry these both things up, and they're pretty tangible.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And tell us about going to GWS and what it was like there. You mentioned you only played at like 11 games there in your 2 seasons there, which is a good effort. Like that's pretty good for your first 2 seasons to notch up that. What was that like playing there in New South Wales? And I think it's Breakfast Point you live there, or you're based.
Yep.
How was it all with the Giants?
Yeah, it was good. I love my time at the Giants. It's a lot different to where I am now in sense of like obviously the club, fans, Melbourne. Yeah. It's people don't expect it like that. It's even like I've got good examples of going out to like school clinics, and they're all just throwing the rugby ball around the footies, and it's so hard to try and get drills out of them. But when you're down here, you go to Essendon clinics and they're just hanging off you, like so eager to learn off you and idolise you. But no, Giants was good. We had a good group up there, and we didn't have the ultimate success in 2019, but we're obviously in the grand final. But to even just learn what it's like to be around such professionals going throughout the finals was massive.
And moving back to Melbourne from Giants to Essendon, you had another number of clubs going for you. But what did you have that like go home factor, and you wanted to be playing in Melbourne in front of family and friends, being able to go visit them throughout the week rather than being interstate, and you can't do those sorts of things? Honestly,
that wasn't too much of a reason why. I feel like that we went to school. I went to boarding school with you for a couple of years, and I never got homesick. Obviously, it's nice seeing family, friends, loved ones, and whatnot. But for me, I just felt like for my football, it's probably better off being in Melbourne. I had a great opportunity. I had a few clubs wanting me, and that's good to have that confidence that clubs do want you in their team. And that was just something that came up, and at the end of the day, it's something that I took, and I've not looked back from that.
And you had a number of clubs going for you, and one of the clubs was St Kilda, a club that you used to dress up in when you were a size 7 and you were a little kid, and you followed them passionately. Like they were having a crack at you, trying to get you down, but you ended up choosing Essendon. Were there other clubs involved as well, trying to pick you up, and what was that whole process like?
Yeah, it was a hard one. I'll touch back on that as well. My midfield coach was Lenny Hayes at the Giants. So that was pretty cool. So then he wasn't at St Kilda at the time, but obviously the Giants. But there was a few clubs. There was other interstate clubs, a few other clubs. But the whole process is you sort of dial down on who's probably the most keen on you. Like you probably might have 8 clubs. There's might be 3 that are super keen, and then the others you sort of peel back. Obviously their needs and wants and whatever, but it was a pretty stressful period. I remember I told the club, and then from there your manager works on trying to get you back home, and obviously the Giants want a fair deal for you as well, and Essendon don't want to trade for much. It's pretty much of a gambling act for them, but it went to the last second or even over, to be honest. Because I didn't think I was going to get done there for a while. So it was, pretty nerve-wracking times. But once it was cleared, it was, happy days.
Yeah, and when you were waiting, was there a chance that you might have to stay at the Giants and a trade might not get through?
I'm not sure. I don't really know much about it. I just left it to my manager, to be honest. But I remember at the time you could walk to the preseason draft, and I didn't have I wasn't contracted, so I'm not sure like what the go was there. But I'm pretty sure that I was probably going to get through. But you just want to, from both parties, you want to be respectful to each other.
All right, Jye. We'll talk about Essendon now. So you played at Giants for your first 2 seasons, moved to the Bombers. And your first season, you suffered an injury, didn't you?
Yep, hamstring injury.
Yeah, so that kept you out of a limited season. But since then, your last 2 seasons there, you've been playing heaps, and it's really going well. But this season and the change of coach, and a bit of development in the whole list, you guys are flying at the moment. How's it all going there at the hangar?
Yeah, it's good. Personally, with my injuries and stuff, like it's just finding that balance with training and a lot of the stuff that I do away from the club as well. I'm big on getting extra massage, Pilates work-ons, to have me in a mentally clear space, and also physically to be in the best shape I can be. There's nothing worse than going into a game knowing that you haven't done everything possible to be in the best shape. Obviously, over a long season, you get pretty battered in the midfield, so you need to look after your body. And collectively, it's been great. I feel like Scotty's been huge for us the last couple of years. We showed glimpses last year, but then dropped off in the back end of the season. But this season, we've got a good age bracket coming through now. We're all pretty young and eager to have some final success, and everyone's playing their roles at the moment, and we're all playing in a position that's suited to our strengths. I feel like that's a big part of how Scotty coaches. We're a framework as well with how we want to play, but he just backs our instincts to get the job done.
And that 67-point loss to Port in round 4, like bad loss. I remember you actually gave me a ticket to a Port game a few years ago in Adelaide.
I got into my hammy, didn't I?
Yeah, you got injured that game.
Yeah,
that was a hammy game.
That was my first hammy. Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
That season, yeah.
So that was it. Yeah, I remember I was spewing because you'd give me a ticket. I came there to follow you, and then it didn't turn out the best. Drapes also got injured that day as well.
Drapes did his syndesmosis, and Sheila did his MCL, I think.
Yeah, that was a bad day, and I was sitting behind, next to Drapes' brother.
Oh, yeah.
And he was going nuts. He
would have been off, wouldn't he?
And he went absolutely off when he got injured.
Yeah.
But it was good fun sitting next to him. But
it's a good ground to watch footy at Adelaide Oval.
It is, yeah.
Very nice.
Is that your favourite ground to play at?
It's hard to go past the G, obviously, but that'd be probably my second, Adelaide Oval.
Yeah, nice. Well, what did Brad Scott say to you guys after that 67-point loss? It came out of nowhere a little bit. But then since then, you guys went undefeated for 7 weeks, 1 draw, 6 wins. Amazing turnaround off the back of a 67-point thrashing to Port. Yeah,
it's the comp's so even at the moment. Like, you see on the weekend with like North and the Pies, like it's like you would never expect that to happen. Like it's so crazy at the moment. But it's Scotty's pretty chill. Like it wasn't that we don't have the talent or the framework or structures. It's just little things you need to tweak in your game each week that bob up. It's like some weeks that you might not make the ground big enough for your contest might not be as good. So it's just trying to realise that at the time or in review and time all together to condense the ground and make the team as best as possible, really. I feel like that because if you try and focus on one thing, it expands on something else. Like you might let down in someone else. If you want to focus on the contest or pressure, you might be letting down like your outside game. Yeah. So it's trying to realise that at the time and bring it all into practice. But there was no alarm bells. The media talk a lot of things up. Yeah. Than what is said internally. We know that it wasn't a great performance. Obviously, like going to Adelaide, playing Port Friday nights, pretty tough ass. and wasn't the performance we wanted to play. But yeah, since then we've played to a good structure, a framework, instincts, and we know that that framework stacks up against the best teams. We've shown that, and they'll hold us in good stead for the end of the season.
So the learning from that game, was it sort of like, and I don't know, maybe it's across the season as well, like being aware of the whole game. So not just contest or we want to work on our zoning or whatever this week. It's like, all right, that half we're good at getting the territory. That other half, like in this quarter, we weren't good at contest. So making sure you got all tabs covered. Is that sort of...
It is, and it's a bit of a hard one because... it's a good example on the weekend when last week we played the Blues. Like we lost by like 26 or something. But in all the KPIs, we had like plus 30 forward half, turnovers, in time and possession, contest. Like a lot of the stats that you win the game.
Yeah,
we won them, but obviously didn't win the game. So they don't sometimes they don't tie together in a rare case. Yeah. But if you get those KPIs sort of, you've sort of hit the game. But then obviously in that game it was scoring accuracy and taking better chances. So it's so hard to sort of dial down on what one thing is, unless you get absolutely thrashed in it. Say like your contest, your stoppage work, you get smacked in clearances. Like it's hard to come back from that if you're not a good transition team.
And talk to us about Anzac Day and that draw and playing in front of that massive crowd.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's that was my third Anzac Day now, and each time you play out there, it's pretty surreal. Like you're standing out there, you got the jets flying over. It's something that, like not many people get to experience that at all. Like you're standing out in the middle, playing in such an important game, and with 90-odd thousand, 100,000 at the G, it's mad. And it was a good game. Both sides could have won that easily. Mycheck could have kicked a couple of points there at the end there, or Langford could have kicked a goal. But pretty sure both sides would have been happy to get at least a couple of points that day. But yeah, we got pies in a few weeks, so hopefully we get the 4 points that game.
Who's your biggest rival?
I don't know. I've sort of changed a fair bit. Like when I was at the Giants, we always had that one with the Bulldogs, and there was the one with the Swans as well. But I don't know. I feel like it's probably Pies maybe. Still the Bulldogs. Probably just treat everyone the same, mate. Just want to get the win.
You probably don't want to talk about your rivals now while you're at Essendon. Yeah. But let's talk about that Giants and Bulldogs one. Yeah. That was full on? What was that like? That was really a proper modern day AFL rivalry.
Yeah, it was because I was sort of fresh there. Like it's not like it's been a long it's not a one from years and years ago. Yeah. Like it's pretty recent, and even now being away from both football clubs, you see from the outside like it's still there. But we had Leon Cameron as a coach who played at the Doggies, I'm pretty sure. And he used to spark us up a fair bit against the Doggies because obviously the two teams played each other when they were flying through the finals there, and and then ever since then, really, like it's been full on with the Bulldogs from them.
Well, was there something you remember that he said about the Bulldogs to pump you guys up?
No, I don't know. Like Leon was good; he used to get up and about, but I don't remember anything word by word, but he could fizz the boys up, that's for sure.
Yeah, nice. Let's talk about let's talk a little bit about umpiring, Jye, because it's been a bit of a nightmare. You probably don't want to say that, but I can. Yeah. But that game late in the in that last, I think it was the last game, you got caught holding the ball, and then you gave away a 50. Was that against Carlton? Or it was Gold Coast
up there.
So what did you make of that, and what do you make of the changes and all of it at the moment?
Yeah, it's pretty hard to umpire at the moment. I feel like there's a lot of different moving pieces. Something changes week by week, but I feel like we just need to just make a clear rule with some stuff and then just umpire it correctly. But yeah, obviously it's a very hard job umpiring at the moment. There's a lot of different pieces and all that. But yeah, I don't think I was holding the ball, mate. Got a whack, but that's all right. We'll move on.
Yeah. Do you guys talk about it much? Like the last rule, it changed. I think the rule interpretation for holding the ball changed like 3 weeks ago. Yep. Since then, have you guys like changed your game much, or it's not really a talking point?
Not really. We've had the umpires in to explain like what's holding the ball, what's not holding the ball. I feel like that's basically all you can do, really, because even with trying to tackle and stuff like the swinging motion, and there's a lot of moving piece. Like as a probably midfielder who tackles a fair bit, I need to be careful of my body in how I'm bringing someone down, if I'm rolling someone, and to do that in a 100% full-on game, it's your reaction times will be pretty quick. So it's pretty hard. Like we don't really practice much of it at training, but you just need good technique to be able to tackle safely and correctly, really.
Yeah, especially you, because you go like very hard at it compared to most other players. But do you like it? Because you also sometimes get tackled, especially because you're an inside player. So, you're in and under all the time, and you want to know that players are also going to tackle you fairly as well. Because I know that for me, this is a bit self-indulgent, but you'd go to play a local game of footy or something, and they just don't know what they're doing, and they're tackling people without fear and going for it. But now with these rule changes, it's like, look after the guy that's got the ball a bit. You can't just sling him into the ground. Do you like that?
Yeah, it's sort of hard. Like you still you get smoked anyway. Like I feel like that even when I do have the ball trying to get a handball out, you get whacked and it still hurts or whatever. Or like you get that's good, like, knowing that you're not going to get like your full head taken off in that regard. But you still know that there's possibilities of getting slung into someone else. Yeah. Because obviously the game's a lot quicker, probably bigger body, stronger. You still get a fair whack at it.
So who you're the most toughest player at Essendon, or you're one of the toughest. There's no doubt about that. Who else is tougher at the Bombers? Who do you go to battle with in the midfield?
We've got Big Sam Durham. So he's come along well this year. The Big does. He's an inside weapon at the moment. Me and him work pretty well together around the stoppages. Who else? We've got Big Setterfield as well. Ben Hobbs. But even probably in the back line, we have Jane Laverty. Who else? There's a few other boys, Jackie Stringer. So we've got a few boys rolling about, but you need them in your team, that's for sure.
Yeah. And talk to me about Harley Reid and Nick Dacos. Like, they've come in for their AFL careers and started and been able to go from the get-go. Like, that's quite phenomenal. But when you play against them, and like, what do you make of their rises? And they've just come out of the blocks and absolutely taken off.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal. It looks like you see the talent that's coming through AFL now. Like AFL is just getting better and better. Like even sometimes you put on Fox Footy and you might watch a game from 2010 and see how different it really is to now. So yeah, it's also good for yourself as a player to try and get better, because you know these guys are coming through who are incredibly talented and work hard, and obviously I'm playing against them as well. But yeah, it's good to be a part. They're two different players as well. I feel like that obviously Harley Reid's that dusty type player, Nick Dacos is that accumulator. But yeah, they're both special talents, and they'll be pretty hard to beat for the next 10 or so years. And
what about your own game, Jye? This year you've really gone to another level. What's really sparked that, and it's been so impressive to watch you come out this year and really dominate. What do you think it's been, and have you felt like this year's been a breakout year for you?
Probably the last couple of years. I feel like that last year I started playing forward. Like I've done a lot of forward midfield type roles and tagging roles as well. Probably 2023 start off forward, like not playing bad footy, like doing my role most weeks, and then sort of had opportunity to play more midfield, and sort of grabbed that with both hands throughout a period. I think does run my best little stretch of footy. I think I was averaging like 26, like 4 tackles and a few clearances a game, which was good for my confidence knowing that I can do that at AFL level. So that was good to be able to do that, and then bleed that into this year of being able to still play that forward role coming off the line and then playing around the ball as well. So it's a bit hard. Like, you want to be a full-time midfielder. Like, that's what I want to be, and I feel like I can be that. But then in a team structure like us, we play a lot of similar type players that can play different roles. So you need to be able to have flexibility in your own game, which I feel like it's been good for me to be able to learn that. But for me to take next level, I feel like it's just dominate more probably in the midfield, which I definitely think I can.
And that's where your strengths lie. Did you have that conversation with one of the coaches at the start of the season? You mentioned before that Brad Scott, he's coaches to the players' strengths. So, what all the players' strengths are, he likes to make sure that players are in those positions. Yeah, was there a moment that sparked that, and to make sure that you can sort of play to your strengths more in games?
Yeah, like I was saying before, I do a lot of mindfulness and visualization stuff. So I feel like that plays a big part in it. But it's also your self-belief. I feel like that bringing those games on realises I have the potential to be able to make it at the top of the level, and even the work you do during the week, that sets you up for the weekend. If you roll into a game thinking you haven't done the work, you most likely haven't. So after probably training during the week, you do your work, and then you sort of stop thinking about the weekend, just because you've done the work and you're in the best shape possible to be able to perform at your best. But obviously it comes with struggles trying to do that each and every week. But that's where the good players lie. I feel like they can flush that, and each week's a new week, and they get the best out of themselves.
Now, I want to ask you about one of your teammates, and this astounds me. I just can't believe that this is happening. And Todd Goldstein, he is unbelievable at his age.
Yep.
What he's doing is just astounding.
Incredible. I didn't watch much North Melbourne. Like, I knew Todd was a gun ruckman for ages and ages, but I didn't realise to the extent that he was. Like, we have two different ruckmen, probably in Drapes, who's probably got a bit of a harder hand compared to Todd Goldstein, who taps it a bit more fluently. But even I've played with him for every game so far this year, and it's just incredible the taps he does. And even just being around the boys, he's that old dog, but he's still got a bit of young fella in him. But I couldn't imagine being Cunnington, Zeeble and Swallow back in probably 2014 when he was in his prime. You can see why the North Melbourne midfield were dominating for so long during those periods, because it was probably Todd putting it down their throats.
And he's astounding. And another good story, or an interesting one, especially for supporters, is Ben Mackay. And he's obviously, everyone talks about sort of the money he's earning and whatever. Does that get spoken about much? And every club's got their big money players. Dustin Martin, at Collingwood, it's I don't know, Jordan De Goey perhaps, or Nick Dacos. Do you guys, at your club, it's probably Ben Mackay and Zach Merritt. Do you guys talk about, is there inside jokes at all about these players that are earning these big bucks?
Not really. Like, it's not really spoken about, to be honest. Like, obviously people know like what people might be on through like social media, but half the time it's not even correct, to be honest. Like, it's like, I remember when stuff was coming out about myself, and it was just not like nowhere near like what was actually the true outcome. Yeah.
Because contracts get front ended and back ended.
It's all mixed up, and not much. Actually, not much, to be honest. So I feel like that one of your mates, you might, if he has a stinky, you might get into him or whatever if he's on a bit much. But other than that, it's pretty dead. Yeah.
Well, that's brilliant, Jye. Thanks very much for coming on Head Over the Footy for a chat. It's been great to see you again, and mate, you are flying at the moment. I'm loving watching you week in, week out. And the one last question actually is the finals prospect of playing finals, and it's something that gets talked about all the time. Is the Bombers playing finals and hopefully winning one? But this season, you guys are coming off back-to-back losses now.
Yep.
How is it coming after the bye, and what's been sort of the messaging? And do you guys talk about finals much? Because a lot of the fans are talking about it, but inside the four walls, it might be a bit different. What's sort of been the chat?
Yeah, it's we don't have to change much at all. I feel like our first half of the season has dictated how we've been going, and so we know we've had 2 losses, but we can get it back pretty quick. Footy changes almost every week, obviously, but there's a lot of finals chat, not internally. We haven't spoke about it once, to be honest. There's a lot of chat from the Essendon fans and AFL people in general about finals, but we're a week-to-week team. We focus on processes during the week and the job on the Saturday, Sunday. So not at all, mate. It would be nice, but we don't think about that.
Yeah. And you're getting good numbers of trading in terms of the fans are coming out to
watch. Yeah, we do.
Watch.
We have. It's a few years ago we had none, but we had a fan day probably not long ago, and there was chocolates. Couldn't believe it. So they come out when you win.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that's fantastic, Jye. Thanks very much, and as I said, just keep up the good work, and thanks for coming on Head Over the Footy. You're certainly someone that keeps their head over the footy, so it's good to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Hatzo.